Chapter 19. The trio of Eli, Marcus, and Eva engaged in a life-or-death battle with a fearsome creature. The moon provided the only source of light, casting long, daunting shadows that added an additional layer of trepidation to the already tense situation. "Marcus, to your left!" Eli yelled. Marcus swiftly pivoted, parrying the claws of the creature with his sword, but the creature was quick, and a swipe of its massive paw sent Marcus flying back. Eli charged forward, thrusting his sword toward the creature. The blade found its mark, plunging deep into the creature's side. It let out a guttural roar, lashing out with its massive tail, and sent Eli sprawling onto the ground. Eva, who had been casting healing spells on her companions and providing cover, now took a front role. Her staff glowed brightly as she invoked a spell of light, momentarily blinding the creature. Eli, taking advantage of the creature's momentary blindness, struggled to his feet. He locked eyes with Eva, nodded, and then charged forward. He leaped onto the creature's back, drove his sword into its neck. The beast let out one final roar before collapsing onto the forest floor, dead. Eva rushed to Marcus's side, casting a healing spell to mend his injuries. Eli joined them, concern etched on his face. "I'm fine," Marcus insisted, wincing as he sat up. "Thanks to both of you." They set up camp nearby, taking turns to keep watch. They were in hostile territory, and they couldn't afford to let their guard down. The fire burned bright, keeping away the chill of the night and any creatures lurking in the shadows. As Eli took the first watch, Marcus and Eva found some rest. Eli, a seasoned adventurer, couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had led them to this point. The quest had been a long and treacherous one, full of surprises and life-altering experiences. He glanced at his companions, sleeping peacefully by the fire. Marcus, a brave warrior with a kind heart, and Eva, the brilliant mage who never failed to impress him with her resilience and intellect. They were different in many ways, but united by a common cause and shared experiences. He thought about the friendships they had formed, the trials they had overcome together, and the shared vision that guided them. It reminded him of a saying he had once heard from an old mentor: "In the face of adversity, true bonds are formed." Eli's thoughts were interrupted by a rustling in the nearby bushes. Instantly alert, he gripped his sword and turned his attention to the source of the noise. But it was just a small animal, frightened by the fire and dashing away into the darkness. He sighed, feeling a sudden sense of exhaustion. The adrenaline from the battle had worn off, and now the weight of the journey seemed to settle on his shoulders. He stoked the fire, ensuring that it would keep them safe for a little longer, and then settled down for the rest of his watch, lost in thought. His watch ended without any further interruptions. As he gently woke Marcus for his shift, Eli was overcome with a sense of camaraderie. They were three strangers who had become so much more to each other in the face of adversity. He slept peacefully, knowing Marcus would keep them safe. As Marcus sat by the fire, his thoughts drifted to the journey ahead. He was a warrior, trained to fight and protect, but the quest they were on had demanded so much more from him. He had had to dig deep within himself, finding courage and resilience he didn't know he possessed. He looked over at Eva, her peaceful face illuminated by the flickering firelight. She had proven herself to be a formidable mage, saving them from countless dangerous situations with her quick thinking and magical prowess. He admired her, not just for her magical abilities, but for her strength of character. He was reminded of something his father used to tell him: "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it." This journey had taught him that bravery was not about not being scared, but about facing those fears and pushing through. And he knew in the battles to come, he would need to keep that lesson close. His watch passed uneventfully, and he woke Eva for the last shift before dawn. As he settled into his sleep, he felt a deep sense of respect for his companions, and a burning determination to see their mission through to the end. As Eva settled in for her watch, she wrapped her cloak around her and peered into the darkness. She was deep in thought, reflecting on how much they'd grown and learned from each other. Looking at the sleeping figures of Eli and Marcus, she realized how much they had come to mean to her. Just a few weeks ago, they were three strangers, thrown together by a twist of fate and a shared mission. But now, they were a team, a family of sorts. They had faced countless challenges together, each time coming out stronger and more united. Her mind drifted to the battles they had won, the close calls, and the losses they'd endured. They had laughed together, cried together, and everything in between. Eva felt a profound sense of gratitude for both of them. They were more than her companions. They were her brothers in arms. She remembered the words of her mentor. True strength is not just in magic, Eva. It's in the connections you make, the people you help, and the lives you touch. That's the real magic. As she sat there watching over her companions, she realized the depth of those words. She was their mage, their protector, but they were her strength, her courage. She was not alone, and for the first time in her life she felt truly powerful. As dawn broke, she gently woke Eli and Marcus. They had a long journey ahead, and while the road would be challenging, she knew they could face anything as long as they were together. As they journeyed on through the rugged landscape, their path brought them to a small, isolated village. The village was nestled between the harsh cliffs on one side and a dense forest on the other. It looked like it was stuck in time, with its rustic houses and narrow cobblestone paths. It was a stark contrast to the bustling cities and advanced magic technology they had witnessed earlier in their journey. Eli, Eva, and Marcus decided to halt there for the night. They found a local inn where they could rest and replenish their supplies. But this quiet hamlet held more than meets the eye. As they settled down for a meal in the inn's warm and cozy dining area, they couldn't help but notice the gloomy expressions on the villagers' faces. The laughter and joy you would typically expect in such a close-knit community seemed absent. There was a strange aura of dread hanging in the air. Eli, with his innate ability to read people, felt it the most. Being the ever-curious person, Eli decided to engage in conversation with the innkeeper, hoping to find out more. As Eli carefully broached the subject, the innkeeper's face grew even more grave. He began to recount a tale that had plagued their village for generations. Apparently, the village was under the constant threat of a mysterious creature that lived in the nearby forest. It would attack the village randomly, causing destruction and taking lives. The villagers had tried to confront it several times, but all attempts had proven futile. The creature was too powerful for them. The innkeeper went on, "We've lost so many. We don't know what to do anymore. The creature's next attack could be any day now, and we're helpless." The mood in the room had grown considerably heavy by the end of the innkeeper's tale. Eva, Eli, and Marcus shared a glance. They all knew without saying a word. They couldn't just stand by and do nothing. They decided to help the villagers. That night, they prepared for a confrontation with the unknown creature, not knowing what they were up against. There was a sense of nervous anticipation in the air. They had battled many creatures before, but every new encounter brought its own set of unknowns. As the moon rose high, they ventured into the forest, armed with their magic and weapons, ready to face the threat that had cast a shadow over the innocent village. The forest was eerily quiet as they ventured deeper, the moonlight casting long shadows that danced around them. They could feel the raw, untamed magic of the place buzzing around them, a stark contrast to the controlled magic they were used to in their city lives. Even Eva, who was the most experienced with wild magic, felt a sense of unease. Eli, using his enhanced senses, tried to track the creature. He found traces of destructive magic residue and followed the trail. Their journey through the twisted, gnarly trees and dense foliage was quiet, except for the occasional snap of a twig under their boots. They soon came upon a clearing. The moonlight shone brightly here, reflecting off a small, calm pool in the middle. They had barely taken a few steps into the clearing when they felt it, a rush of powerful, dark magic. It sent chills down their spines, and they immediately went into defensive positions. With a sudden, terrifying roar, the creature leaped out of the shadows. It was unlike any creature they had ever seen. It was massive, with gnarled skin that looked as hard as stone, glowing red eyes that bore into them with a chilling intensity. Its roar echoed around the forest, seeming to shake the very earth beneath them. Their battle with the creature was harsh and chaotic. They tried to coordinate their attacks, with Eva and Eli using their magic to attack from a distance, while Marcus attempted to engage the creature directly with his weapons. But the creature was stronger than anything they had ever faced. Despite their best efforts, they found themselves on the defensive, trying to dodge and counter the creature's powerful attacks. Marcus was thrown against a tree, momentarily stunned. Eli's attempts to bind the creature with his magic were shrugged off like they were nothing. Eva's spells seemed to only agitate the creature further. They were struggling, and the harsh reality of the situation struck them. They were not winning this fight. This realization, however, did not bring despair. Instead, it sparked a newfound determination within them. They could not, would not, give up. Not when the lives of the innocent villagers depended on them. As Marcus recovered, he shouted to Eli and Eva, "We need to combine our magic." They had only done this once before, and it had drained them significantly. But it was a risk they were willing to take. Gathering their strength, they focused on their bond, their shared determination fueling their magic. Marcus initiated the sequence, his weapon acting as the focal point. Eva and Eli followed, their magic intertwining with Marcus's. The resulting blast of combined magic was more potent than anything they had ever produced. It hit the creature square in the chest, sending it flying back. The creature roared, an agonizing, terrifying sound that echoed through the silent forest. Then it fell silent. Exhausted, the three friends watched as the creature slowly reverted back to its original form, that of a normal forest animal. The dark magic that had corrupted the creature slowly dissipated into the air. The aftermath of the battle was surprisingly peaceful. The forest, which had been so menacing before, seemed to breathe a sigh of relief along with them. They looked at each other, their eyes reflecting a shared relief, but also a profound exhaustion. They were drained, physically and magically, but they had succeeded. The creature was no longer a threat. They gave themselves a moment to catch their breaths, leaning on each other for support. Then, slowly and painfully, they set about taking care of their wounds. Eva, despite her own injuries, used her remaining magic to heal the worst of Marcus and Eli's injuries. They thanked her with tired smiles, their eyes reflecting a deep gratitude. As they rested, they began to feel the side effects of their combined magic. A profound weariness had set in, making their limbs heavy and their eyelids droopy. They knew they needed to return to the village to inform the villagers of their success. But in their current state, they were unable to even stand, let alone walk back to the village. "We'll rest here for the night," Eli decided, his voice barely a whisper. Marcus and Eva nodded, too exhausted to argue. They found a relatively dry and soft spot on the forest floor and settled down, their bodies aching from the intense battle. Despite their exhaustion, sleep did not come easy. They were too wound up, the adrenaline from the battle still coursing through their veins. They lay there, staring at the stars peeking through the tree canopy, lost in their own thoughts. As the moon traveled across the sky, they each found themselves contemplating the same question. What did it mean to be a hero? They had always thought of heroes as invincible beings, always winning their battles with a smile. But today, they had faced a real battle. They had been scared, hurt, and on the verge of giving up. But they had pushed through. They had fought not because they were invincible, but because they had to, because they cared about the people they were protecting. They realized then that being a hero was not about being invincible. It was about standing up for what you believed in, despite your fears and despite the odds. It was about caring for others more than yourself. As dawn approached, they found themselves drifting off to sleep, their bodies finally giving in to the exhaustion. Just as they were about to succumb to sleep, a sudden noise jolted them awake. They sat up, their hearts pounding, their senses on high alert. The noise came again, louder this time, followed by a soft, echoing laughter that sent chills down their spines. A new, unknown magic filled the air, stronger and darker than anything they had ever felt. As they stood there, their exhaustion forgotten, they knew one thing for certain. Their journey was far from over. Decades of layered history, old streets buried beneath new, creating a labyrinth only known to the few who dared to venture into the city's depths. They had planned to set out when the dawn had barely touched the sky, a moment when the city was still cloaked in shadows, providing them the perfect cover for their descent. "You're sure about this, aren't you?" Samantha questioned Elias. The usually carefree woman's demeanor had shifted. Her concern was palpable, even under the dull glow of the early morning lights. "I'm sure," Elias responded, his eyes focused on the old map spread out on the table before them. His fingers traced the lines of the ancient roads, the maze of the undercity that they were about to delve into. "We've got no other choice. The answers we're seeking, they're down there." The team had come together, each one of them carrying their own weight, and Elias, though he bore the mantle of leader, knew that every single one of them was invaluable. Their unity, their shared determination was their strength. He looked around at his companions, his friends, their faces illuminated by the faint glow of the single lantern in the room. "I won't lie to you," he said, breaking the silence that had enveloped them. "This is going to be dangerous, but I believe in us. I believe in our ability to face whatever lies ahead. And remember, we're doing this not just for ourselves, but for our city, for those who can't fight, for those who have been silenced." As Elias finished his speech, a quiet, solidifying determination seemed to settle among the group. There was no fanfare, no grand declaration of bravery, only a shared understanding of the weight they bore on their shoulders. "All right," Samantha said finally, breaking the momentary silence. "Let's do this." The group set out, the ancient city looming over them, its secrets lying in wait, ready to be unveiled. The atmosphere was heavy with anticipation, the streets desolate, the city holding its breath as they made their way to the Undercity entrance. It wasn't long before they reached their destination, a centuries-old stairwell, worn down by time, leading into the city's belly. They each took one last look at the city above before starting their descent, the dim light from their torches casting eerie shadows on the rough stone walls surrounding them. As they ventured further down, the sounds of the city faded, replaced by the echoing silence of the Undercity. The air grew cooler, the smell of damp earth filling their nostrils. Their footsteps echoed off the walls, the only sound to break the eerie silence. Slowly but surely, they navigated through the Undercity, their path lit by the wavering glow of their torches. The silence was deafening, their hearts pounding in their chests, the only reminder of their existence in this desolate place. Just as they were starting to grow accustomed to the oppressive silence, a low rumble echoed through the corridors, the ground beneath their feet starting to shake. The torches flickered wildly as dust and small stones fell from the ceiling. "Everyone hold on!" Elias shouted above the roar of the trembling earth. But as the tremors grew stronger, a gaping hole suddenly opened up beneath them, swallowing them whole into the unknown. Was what truly held them together. Regardless of their unique backgrounds and varying skill sets, their strength was derived from their collective unity. Elias gripped onto the nearest ledge as the ground beneath them gave way. Samantha was not far away, clinging onto a piece of rock jutting out from the walls. The others were in a similar state, hanging onto whatever they could find as the earth quaked beneath them. Once the tremors subsided, they found themselves in a dark void. Their torches had been extinguished in the fall, and now they were in complete darkness. The silence was stifling, a stark contrast to the chaotic rumbling they had just experienced. "Samantha, are you okay?" Elias called out, his voice echoing in the darkness. "I'm okay, Elias," Samantha's voice came from a little distance away. One by one, each member of the group confirmed their safety, their voices echoing in the abyss. With the help of a flint, Elias managed to reignite his torch, casting an unsteady light around them. They found themselves in an enormous cavern, the ceiling lost to darkness above them. A new path lay ahead, leading further into the depths of the Undercity. But this path was different. It was lined with strange markings and symbols etched into the stone walls. Elias looked at the symbols, his fingers tracing the strange characters. They were unlike any he had seen before. But as he examined them closer, he noticed a familiar symbol hidden among the rest, one that he had seen on the old map. "We're on the right track," he stated, an air of determination enveloping him. "These symbols, they match with those on the map. We're heading the right way." With renewed vigor, the group continued on their path. They walked for what seemed like hours, their journey only interrupted by the occasional echoing drip of water from the cave ceiling. Suddenly they came upon a fork in the path, with two tunnels extending in different directions. Both were marked with the same symbols they had been following. "Now what?" Samantha asked, turning to Elias. Elias studied the symbols at the entrance of both tunnels. One set was etched deeper than the other, and Elias made his decision. "We'll take the left path. The symbols are deeper on this side. It may indicate it's the main route," he explained. And so they ventured into the left tunnel, the echo of their footsteps the only sound to break the heavy silence. As they walked further in, a faint glow started to fill the tunnel, growing brighter with each step. The tunnel opened up into a massive chamber filled with an eerie, glowing light. But the source of the light was what caught their breaths. In the center of the chamber was a glowing crystal formation, pulsating with a mesmerizing light. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, a breathtaking spectacle that was both beautiful and ominous. But as they stood in awe, Elias noticed something in the distance, a figure standing by the glowing crystal. As he squinted to get a better look, he felt a shiver run down his spine. The figure turned towards them, its eyes glowing in the dark, mirroring the light of the crystal. A voice, ancient and deep, echoed throughout the chamber, freezing them in their tracks. "Who dares enter the heart of the Undercity? Who dares enter the heart of the Undercity?" The figure echoed once more, its voice resonating within the chamber. Elias stepped forward, his torch held high. "We mean no harm," he called out. "We are explorers, seeking knowledge." The figure did not move, but the glow in its eyes dimmed slightly. "Explorers," it mused. "You have traveled far, and yet what have you truly discovered?" Elias paused at this, taken aback by the figure's question. "We have discovered much," he replied somewhat hesitantly. "New paths, ancient symbols, and now, you." "Knowledge does not only reside in tangible discoveries, young one," the figure said, its voice softer now. "True understanding lies within, in the lessons you learn from your journey. Remember, not all that glitters is gold." Elias contemplated the figure's words, his mind a whirl of thoughts. He thought about their perilous journey so far, the challenges they faced, the decisions they had to make. It wasn't just about finding the hidden treasures or unraveling the secrets of the ancient civilization, but it was also about the bonds they formed, the resilience they discovered within themselves, and the wisdom they gained along the way. In that moment, Elias understood the profound meaning behind the figure's words. Their journey was more than just a physical exploration of the Undercity. It was an exploration of their inner selves, a testament to their courage, unity, and thirst for knowledge. The figure seemed to sense Elias's understanding. It raised its hand, revealing a key glowing with the same light as the crystal. "Your journey does not end here," it said. "The final path awaits." Elias took the key, feeling a surge of energy coursing through him. As he turned back to his companions, he could see the same realization reflected in their eyes. With a renewed sense of purpose, they ventured deeper into the Undercity, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The mysterious figure disappeared, leaving behind the glowing crystal as the only source of light. Just as they were about to step into the unknown, the ground beneath them suddenly began to tremble, and a loud rumbling echoed throughout the chamber. They turned around, their eyes wide in alarm as they saw the tunnel they had entered from start to collapse. "The way back! It's closing!" Samantha yelled, panic evident in her voice. Indeed, their path back was disappearing, leaving them with no choice but to move forward. But what lay ahead? What awaited them deeper in the heart of the Undercity? And as the echo of the collapsing tunnel faded away, the explorers braced themselves for the final leg of their journey, their hearts filled with both trepidation and anticipation. The explorers stood on the edge of a precipice, looking down into the abyss. The light from the crystal in Elias's hand only revealed a limited area around them, beyond which was an impenetrable darkness. They were at a crossroads, quite literally so, as they now faced two options: to ascend and face the risk of the collapsing tunnel, or to descend into the unknown darkness. "Are we really doing this?" asked Samantha, her voice wavering. The image of the tunnel collapsing behind them was still fresh in their minds, the dread of it very real. Elias looked at his companions, their faces lit by the glow of the crystal. Their expressions reflected fear, uncertainty, and anticipation, feelings he was well acquainted with at this moment. But there was no turning back now. The decision had already been made when the tunnel behind them collapsed. "Yes, we're doing this," he said, nodding his head. "Together." With the glow of the crystal in his hand illuminating the way, Elias took the first step into the darkness. As he descended, the cold, damp air became more intense, causing a shiver to run down his spine. The ground beneath his feet was uneven, and loose rocks rolled down the slope with every step he took. The explorers followed him one by one, their steps careful and measured. The silence around them was profound, the only sound being their footfalls and the distant echo of dripping water. As they ventured deeper, they found that the path was narrowing, the walls of the tunnel closing in on them. The air felt heavy, almost suffocating, but they pressed on, each step taking them further away from what was known and closer to the unexplored. The darkness was unnerving, but the explorers found comfort in their unity. They stayed close, their combined strength and willpower helping them face the unknown. This unity was not only their greatest strength, but also their most precious discovery during this journey. They were not just descending into the physical depths of the world, but also into the depths of their fears and uncertainties. The journey was a test of their resolve, of their willingness to confront their fears and emerge victorious. After what felt like hours, Elias felt the descent beginning to level out. They had reached the bottom. The ground was wet, possibly due to an underground stream. The explorers, guided by the light of the crystal, began to explore the cave. Suddenly, they saw a flicker in the distance, a weak, trembling light, unlike the steady glow of the crystal. As they approached it, they saw the source of the light, another crystal much larger than the one Elias held, embedded in the wall of the cave. "It's magnificent," murmured Samantha, staring in awe. The crystal was larger than any they had ever seen. It radiated an intense light that illuminated the entire cave. But it was not just the sight of the crystal that took their breath away. It was the realization of what it represented. This crystal was a symbol of hope in the face of adversity, a beacon of light in the depths of darkness. The lesson was clear. There is always light to be found, no matter how deep you descend into the darkness. You just have to have the courage to keep going, to keep exploring, to keep believing. As the explorers basked in the glow of the crystal, they did not notice the ground beneath them beginning to shake. Suddenly the ground split open, and Elias was thrown into the abyss. "Elias!" the rest of the team screamed in unison as their leader disappeared into the gaping hole. The abyss stared back at them with an unwavering darkness. The only proof that Elias had fallen into it was the fading echo of his astonished shout. Samantha, Kyle, and James stood, petrified at the edge, staring into the unfathomable depth that swallowed their friend whole. Elias, their fearless leader who always seemed to know the way, was gone, and what was left in his wake was a void, both physically in front of them and emotionally within them. Grief wrapped its cold arms around Samantha as she stared at the spot where Elias had just stood, a ghostly echo of her companion who had led them fearlessly through their quest. Her heart pounded in her chest like a frantic bird trapped in a cage. "Elias!" she choked out, her voice bouncing around the hollow cavern. Next to her, Kyle's face had gone deathly pale. He had been the last one to grasp Elias's hand, and now he stood there, frozen in time, staring at his empty hand as if he could still feel Elias's grip. His eyes, wide with horror, stared at the void, mirroring the abyss itself. As for James, he was silent. He always was. But the shock was evident in his widened eyes and the way his hands trembled. He stumbled back, shaking his head as if to deny the reality before them. There was an eerie silence after Samantha's echo faded away. The cavern seemed to hold its breath, mourning the loss of a brave soul. The wind whimpered through the nooks and crannies of the cave, a soft lament for their fallen leader. It was Kyle who finally broke the silence. "We need to find a way down there," he said, his voice shaky but determined. His eyes met Samantha's, and for a moment they were no longer teenagers lost in a strange realm. They were soldiers on a mission, brave and resolute. They were Elias's companions. "But how?" Samantha asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The question hung in the air like a ghost. The abyss was vast, the bottom unseen. It was a monstrous black hole that had swallowed Elias and now sat there, waiting to consume them too. James looked at them, his usually stoic face reflecting the same fear and uncertainty. "We need to think like Elias would," he said quietly, his gaze shifting back to the abyss. Those words hit them like a thunderbolt. Think like Elias. He was always the problem solver, the strategist, the one who found the path when there was none. He had brought them through countless challenges, his indomitable spirit leading the way. Could they really think like him? Could they carry on his legacy? Bolstered by the memory of their leader, the trio began brainstorming solutions. They searched their surroundings, scavenging for materials they could use. From the dense undergrowth, they pulled out sturdy vines, testing their strength and resilience. Samantha suggested using these as makeshift ropes, an idea that Elias himself would have endorsed. However, their plan was not without risks. The vines could snap, the knot could loosen, or they might not even reach the bottom of the abyss. Yet, it was the only plan they had, and time was running out. The longer they took, the worse Elias's condition could become. Working together, they tied the vines into a long, sturdy rope. James was the first to descend, his body swaying precariously as he lowered himself into the abyss. Samantha and Kyle watched anxiously, holding their breaths as he disappeared into the darkness. After a tense moment, they heard a muffled shout. James had made it. Samantha went next, her heart pounding in her chest. As she descended, she felt the chilling cold of the abyss creeping into her bones. Yet, she pressed on, motivated by the need to find Elias and the knowledge that giving up was not an option. Finally, it was Kyle's turn. Clenching the vine rope, he stepped into the abyss. His heart pounded wildly, echoing the eerie silence that engulfed him. As he descended, he could make out the faint outline of his companions waiting for him. At last, they were at the bottom of the abyss, the air heavy with anticipation. They switched on their flashlights, scanning the area for any sign of Elias. The beams of light danced across the rocky floor, creating moving shadows that seemed to come alive in the darkness. Just when they were about to lose hope, James's flashlight fell upon a figure huddled against a rock. It was Elias. He was unconscious, his face pale, but alive. The trio felt a surge of relief. However, their joy was short-lived as they realized the gravity of the situation. Elias needed medical help immediately, but they were stuck at the bottom of an abyss, with only a vine rope as their way out. It was a daunting task, but they were ready to face it. As the trio huddled around Elias, a lesson they learned from their leader echoed in their minds. Hope is the greatest ally in the face of adversity. In this harrowing situation, they found strength in those words, clinging onto the hope that they could save Elias. However, as they devised a plan to evacuate Elias, a low rumble echoed from above. The ground beneath them started shaking. An earthquake. Their situation was perilous, with the danger of a cave-in becoming real. As rocks began to fall around them, the trio looked at each other, realizing that their fight for survival was far from over. They were trapped in the abyss, with an injured friend, and a potential cave-in looming over them. The ground beneath them was shaking, the vibrations growing stronger with every passing second. Chunks of rock began to crumble from the ceiling, falling around them. The noise was deafening, a horrific roar that echoed off the walls of the cavernous abyss. James, Kyle, and Sarah quickly moved to shield Elias, their bodies becoming a protective barrier against the onslaught. Each was acutely aware of their own vulnerability, their mortality, as they faced the mounting danger. But in their hearts a fire burned, fueled by the desperate need to survive, to save Elias, to overcome this impossible situation. However, amidst this chaos, a profound realization dawned upon them. Each challenge they had faced till now had prepared them for this moment. Every problem they had solved, every obstacle they had overcome, had brought them to this point. They realized that this was not just about survival, but also about the essence of being human. In the face of insurmountable odds, their humanity had come to the fore, pushing them to not only survive, but to protect their own. They understood that it was this strength, the strength of spirit and camaraderie, that truly defined them. This realization, while daunting, also imbued them with a sense of purpose, strengthening their resolve. Shifting his focus back to the matter at hand, James started formulating a plan. They needed to secure Elias and find a way out, all while avoiding the falling rocks and the ever-present danger of a total cave-in. They were in a race against time, and they couldn't afford to lose. James quickly ran through their limited options, making split-second decisions. He knew they had to remain calm and focused, not an easy task given the circumstances. However, he had faith in his team, in their ability to adapt and overcome. As he looked around, he saw a narrow opening on the far side of the cavern. It seemed to lead deeper into the mountain. The path was treacherous, strewn with sharp rocks and loose gravel, but it was their only option. James took one last look around, steeling himself for what was to come. He knew the journey wouldn't be easy. They would face dangers, perhaps even greater than the ones they had already encountered, but they had no other choice. They had to move forward. It's a profound thought, one that carries weight not just in their current predicament, but in life as well. Often we find ourselves facing challenges that seem insurmountable, situations that leave us feeling helpless and cornered. It's in such times that we must find the strength to push forward, to persevere, even when the path ahead seems treacherous and fraught with danger. After all, the only way out is through. With a last reassuring look at his team, James moved, his footsteps echoing off the cavern walls. He was painfully aware of the earth shaking under their feet, and he forced himself to concentrate on the narrow path ahead. Behind him, Sarah picked her way carefully, her eyes darting between the path ahead and the team behind her. She was tense, her body ready to spring into action at any moment. She knew the risks they were taking, but she also knew they had no other choice. It was either this or be buried alive. They moved in silence, the only sound the echo of their footsteps and the occasional rumble of the mountain. The path was treacherous, but they moved steadily, not allowing fear to slow their progress. Just as they were about halfway across, a loud, echoing boom filled the cavern. The ground under their feet shuddered violently, and a large piece of the cavern's ceiling collapsed, sending a shower of rocks and debris towards them. James instinctively pushed Sarah out of the way, taking the brunt of the fall himself. He heard her shout his name, but his vision was filled with dust and darkness. He felt a sharp pain in his back, and then nothing. This moment serves as a poignant reminder of the importance of selflessness and sacrifice. James was willing to put his life on the line for his team, and his actions speak volumes about his character. It's a profound lesson on the power of selfless love, loyalty, and the bonds that tie us together. When the dust settled, Sarah was the first to recover. She pulled herself up from the ground, her heart hammering in her chest. "James!" she called out, her voice echoing in the silent cavern. She rushed to his side, her hands shaking as she checked for a pulse. It was weak, but it was there. Relief washed over her, but it was quickly replaced by fear. They were trapped in a rapidly deteriorating mountain, and their leader was unconscious. With a sense of urgency, Sarah turned to the rest of the team. "We need to get him out of here," she said, her voice firm. She knew she had to step up and take charge. They were in a dangerous situation, and hesitation could cost them their lives. Working together, they carefully lifted James and continued their journey across the cavern. The path was even more treacherous now, but they moved with determination, spurred on by the knowledge that their leader's life depended on their actions. They made it to the other side of the cavern just as another violent tremor shook the mountain. They quickly sought cover, shielding James as best as they could. When the shaking stopped, they were greeted by the sight of the path they had just traversed, completely blocked by debris. They were cut off from their original route, but they were still alive. They had made it through the first part of their dangerous journey, and they had done it together. The events that unfolded in the cavern illustrate the importance of resilience and teamwork. When faced with an impossible situation, the team didn't panic or fall apart. Instead, they came together and relied on each other to make it through. It's a powerful lesson on the strength of unity and the human spirit's ability to overcome adversity. Despite the trials they had already faced, the team knew they were not out of danger yet. The mountain continued to groan around them, a reminder of their precarious situation. The way back was blocked, and their only choice was to move forward, deeper into the unknown. They took stock of their supplies, realizing they had enough for only a couple more days. The gravity of their situation was clear, but it did not dampen their spirits. They had come this far together and were resolved to face whatever came next as a united front. They set up a makeshift camp, taking turns to keep watch while the others tried to rest. Sarah looked at James, his face pale but peaceful in his unconscious state. His condition was stable for now, but she knew they needed to find help soon. Her resolve strengthened. They would get out of this mountain alive. Through the next few grueling days, the team faced challenges they never imagined. Limited food and water, treacherous terrain, and the constant threat of another cave-in were daily realities. But in the face of it all, they didn't lose hope. They shared stories, laughed, and cried together. Their camaraderie and shared experiences only strengthened their bond. The mountain taught them an important lesson that even in the face of uncertainty and danger, hope and unity could carry them through. It was a profound message that they would carry with them long after they made it out of the mountain. But for now, their journey was far from over. As they turned in for the night, an ominous rumble echoed through the caverns, a grim reminder that the worst might be yet to come. Would they be able to make it out alive, or was this mountain going to be their final resting place? We've now come to the end of this chapter. Please find the next chapter on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to be notified of new stories and chapters are published. Thank you for listening and have a wonderful and peaceful night. Stay tuned for sleep music coming up.